The last day of summer, Chapter 7. Pausing, the best part. The legendary Austin boys' agreed-upon bravery got them as far as the sidewalk outside of Mr. Archie's hardware. Their next course of action had seemed like a no-brainer. Find and capture Mr. Flux, possibly the stranger from the portal, too, until they saw the street. You might expect a stampeding mob, particularly one chased by a giant, furry, duck-billed elephant, to leave a bit of disarray in its path. An overturned trash can would not be surprising. Perhaps a toppled bench. One might understand a trampled bush or two. Indeed, all these things were left as evidence of the event. There was more, though. So much more. That car, she'd pointed a shaky finger at the vehicle several dozen yards away, should not do that. It was a way back in the day car that belonged to Mr. Green, the local back in the day car expert. Big and red, maybe as old as Grandma. Also, it was upside down. Not sitting on its roof like a normal upside-down car would be, but flipped tires into the sky in midair, high enough to roll a basketball beneath it. It wasn't touching the ground at all. Other objects were positioned in unusually impossible ways. A lamppost had been broken in half like a pretzel stick. Instead of toppling to the ground next to the base it was once connected to, it hung diagonally in the air as if on strings. The back window of another car was shattered, but the glass shards had not fallen. They hovered like ice chunks floating in still water. Slowly, carefully, the boys approached the scene of suspended destruction, where things that were crushed, thrown, or knocked over took their sweet time hitting the ground. No, Otto thought, it's not taking any time at all. He squinted at a chunk of broken asphalt that had sprung from a porthole in the center of the street before fixing itself in the air, as stationary as a brick set in the center of a long-standing wall. She'd examined other hanging debris. It's like when we pause a movie. Yes, Otto agreed in a flash of understanding. He snatched his pad from his pocket, jotted down his deduction while waiting for his cousin to catch up. A giant monster movie, see? He swept an arm towards the end of the street, along with a path of destruction. The mob came from that way, all of them running into things. He pointed to a tilted, not fallen, trash cans, tipped and angled precariously, newspaper boxes and benches, and merchant signs and other small messes. Then the creature came. Otto motioned to the larger objects, the lamppost and the flipped car. Sheev's eyes widened, getting it. Oh, when they touched this stuff, they unfroze it like we did with Grandma's forks and our bites, but just for a second. Right. The moment they weren't touching it, he motioned to that piece of asphalt hovering at chest level, it refroze in time wherever they left it, even if they left it in the air. Entry number 38. The rules are different for the mob and that creature than they are for us. We can unstick little stuff with some effort, but our stuff stays unstuck. They seem to unstick stuff easy just by running into things, but their stuff becomes stuck again right after. Why? Deduction? Unclear. More experimentation is in order. She'd stepped closer, gently poked the hunk of suspended road. There was a delay, not more than a second, and it fell to their feet with a solid thunk. They leapt backwards and said, "Whoa!" Otto knelt and picked up the chunk easily, even though it was kind of heavy. It had none of the stickiness of other frozen stuff they'd tried to move before. He scribbled furiously in his notepad, "We should try some of the other suspended items." Before he finished the sentence, she jogged over to the upside-down car. "I got you. Be careful. A car suddenly falling to the ground might be way more destructive and dangerous than a chunk of asphalt." She judged the farthest distance his long and scrawny arms could reach and still touched the vehicle. Settled in that position, he flattened his palm against the back of the day car's door. It didn't fall, as Otto had suspected, given its size, though something was happening. "It's vibrating," she'd said, his teeth chattering from the tremor running up his arm. "I can feel it. I can see it." The air around the car shimmered like road heat on the hottest days. She pulled his hand from the car, and the shimmering stopped. "Are you okay?" Otto asked. He looked at his hand, curled and uncurled his fingers. "I'm good. My hand's a little tingly." Otto said, "Let's both try it." They took a deep breath together, as they always did before trying some big new thing, like creating their legendary maneuvers. After a silent countdown from 3, they each thrust a hand forward, smacking the side of the car. There was the same vibration as before. Otto thought it felt like holding the handle of Grandma's vacuum that he tried sucking up her curtains. Then the car unstuck and crashed to the ground with a groan of metal as his roof pancaked under its weight. The boys leapt backwards, grinning. "What do you think it means?" asked she, circling the car, examining it for any strange clues. Otto was slow answering, returning to notes, his tiny pencil flying across the page. Entry number 39. Previous deduction. Scratched through. Grandma is too big to move. Maybe all people are. Now it says, the back-in-the-day car is huge. Since me and she were able to unstick it when we worked together, size can't be the reason we couldn't unstick Grandma. She's way smaller than a car. Otto stopped writing. Everything we've been able to move so far has been something not alive. Forks, pots, the stuff we get from the hardware store. She caught up on quickly, his expression grave. That's why we couldn't move Grandma. She's not a person, not a thing. Otto continued his notation. We can move stuff, but not people, because... Deduction, people aren't things. She kept examining the flipped car, kneeling, squinting through its broken windows, so he saw Otto's stout legs on the other side. We really need to find Flux and that stranger fast. If we can't unstick people on our own, we'll make them do it. No. She'd sprang to his feet, stared at Otto's over the car's back tire. Okay, genius, you don't like the plan all of a sudden? What else you got? Otto gazed down the street, and he was worried. That wasn't me. No. There it was again. Not Otto, not Sheed. The low-pitched moan came from the direction of the stampeding mob had taken. There was nothing for them to argue about this time. They'd been around each other too long, knew each other too well to make another sound. They tiptoed back to their bikes where they left the supplies for Mr. Archie's. She'd opened his sack, and Otto went to work uncoiling the length of rope inside. It was time for maneuver number 16, corner and capture. Chapter 8, Shiny, Unhappy People. No! There it was again. A sound of pain and anguish. Otto recalled a similar cry from the mailman, Mr. Reynolds, when Dr. Medina's hospital lost track of its one and only vampire bat and it bit him on the neck. Otto worked the loose end of his rope into a lasso while she carried the slack. They moved in a crouch, hunched low under the window frames of the businesses they passed. Dampino's dry cleaning, Knit and Needle's yarn store, the Lopsided Furniture Company. Lopsided is the name of one of Fry's founding families. Their furniture is level. No, the boy stopped. From this close it was clear that the anguished voice or voices came from around the corner beyond the newest and possibly oddest business in Fry, the Rorum Mirror Emporium. Still low and quiet, the boys crept past the Mirror Emporium's display window, catching glimpses of their own reflections dozens of times, over in mirrors of various sizes, shapes, and mounts. Past the display window at the corner they paused. Otto stayed low, while she stood. They peeked around the corner at the sights, one of which was ordinarily strange, while the other was extraordinarily strange. Next to the Mirror Emporium was what Grandma called green space. It was an area that had bushes and baby trees and benches and a neat water fountain. Grandma said it was meant to keep downtown Fry pretty so people didn't have to look at just buildings and businesses all the time. It wasn't a large space, big enough for people to have a seat while eating their lunch or toss pennies in the fountain for a wish. Also, it was big enough for Mrs. Nedrall, the owner of the Rorum Mirror Emporium, to take her favorite mirrors for a walk. That was the ordinarily, meaning common for Logan County Fry, strange thing, by the way. In the year since Mrs. Nedrall had opened the Emporium, she'd made a daily habit of loading a bunch of mirrors into a red wagon and trucking them along the cobblestone paths of the green space. Everyone noticed it, whispered about it. The Logan County Gazette even wrote a story about Mrs. Nedrall's weird habit. When asked about the routine, Mrs. Nedrall was quoted as saying, "It keeps everything calm and collected." Not much of an explanation, but enough for the people of Fry and the rest of Logan County. The boys were not surprised to see Mrs. Nedrall with her wagon full of mirrors. They weren't surprised that she was frozen mid-step, one black and white striped stocking and a black clog shoe stretched ahead, not quite touching the ground. They were surprised by her unfrozen company. Two people, two shiny people. Not like when you run and sweat a lot or when you're oily from not washing your face good and Grandma tells you to go back upstairs and do it right. These two glowed. Their clothes were varying shades of yellow and gold. One wore a suit with pants that looked like fresh butter, the coat like canary feathers, and a tightly knotted neckerchief the color of lemon peels, while the other wore a mustard skirt. Her blouse was like a fresh eggs yolk in a big floppy hat, the shade of sunflowers complemented her gold hoop earrings. Their skin was coppery, the shade and sheen of new pennies. They were the extraordinarily strange things. They faced each other like two suns at the center of a solar system consisting entirely of hovering hand mirrors. The one in the skirt lifted a new hand mirror from Mrs. Needraw's wagon, inhaled, braced herself, and peered into the glass. No, she flung the mirror aside, where it stuck in the air like a piece of fruit suspended in jello. The one in the pants also had a fresh mirror. He raised it to eye level, gasped, "No!" He flung it away. They reached toward the wagon for new mirrors. Otto, not bothering to consult Sheed, stepped from his hiding place, holding both hands up. "Wait!" The shiny people faced him, sprouting twin smiles. The one in the skirt said, "You can see us?" "Yes." The one in the pants said, "Do we look fabulous?" I guess." They rushed forward, brushing aside floating mirrors that reset themselves in the air once the pair were clear of them. "Be careful," said Mrs. Needraw in the same ventriloquist style as the other frozen Frau residents, though no one seems to be paying her any attention. Sheed, for his part, left his hiding place and punched Otto in the shoulder. "Ow! What was that for?" Otto asked. "For giving away our position without warning me. They aren't dangerous." "You don't know that." "But we aren't dangerous," said the shiny man in the neckerchief. "We're stylists." The woman in the skirt thrust forward a flimsy cardboard rectangle. The boys hesitated, looked at each other, then Otto took the object before she could argue. It was a business card, and it said, "Golden Hour A.M. Your best look now." That's all it said. Otto flipped the card over. There was no phone number, email address, or website. The one in the neckerchief also offered a card. She took that one, read it, compared it to the one in Otto's hand. "It's the same," she said. "Not at all," said the man. "I'm P.M." The woman said, "I'm A.M." Otto reviewed both cards and saw the difference as slight as it was. Golden Hour A.M. and Golden Hour P.M. Together the Golden Hours said, "We make anybody look good," Otto said. "That's really confusing." "Yeah," she'd agreed. The Golden Hours stroked their chins. The woman said, "Perhaps you have a point. Does it help if I tell you I'm the one in the skirt?" She fluffed the garment's yellow lacy frills. "Not really," said she. "What's a golden hour anyway?" "Everyone knows us," the man said, a bit agitated. "We're responsible for that special time of the day." "Just around sunrise and sunset," the woman interjected. "When the light is perfect for taking your most gorgeous photos." Otto said, "Does A.M. stand for antemeridium and P.M. for postmeridium, like a clock?" "Absolutely not," scoffed the woman. "One means amazingly magnificent, and the other positively marvelous." "Well," the man said, stretching the word, "that's only after we rebranded. We agreed we'd stick with the new naming convention in front of clients. I know we did, but since things have gone so haywire, we may need to think before our public image until all is sorted out. If we're not consistent with our brand, how can we expect the interdimensional community to?" She'd interrupted their bickering. "So Otto is right, like a clock?" Reluctantly, they had nodded. She'd bit the inside of his cheek, really thinking it over. He motioned to himself, then Otto. "I'm Rashid, and he's Octavius, but people call us Sheed and Otto because it's just easier. What if we gave you two easier names? Is it okay if we call you A.M. and P.M.? He waited so they could think it over. Grandma said it was respectful to call people what they wanted to be called and nothing else. The Golden Hours turned away, whispered back and forth, came to a decision. "Those names are perfectly fine with us." "Sweet," Otto said. "A.M., P.M., can you tell us what's going on around here?" P.M. fiddled with his neckerchief. "We don't really know." She'd waved towards the path of the destruction of the street behind them. "Do you know what the big fuzzy duck monster was?" A.M.'s skirt swished with a fearful shudder. "Oh, that was a time suck." As if that was all the explanation required. "What's the heck's a time suck?" "Extremely dangerous creatures," said P.M., his complexion dimming. "If they catch you, they just want to play and wrestle and sometimes step on you and drag your flattened body around like a rag doll so you can't get anything done. Very inconvenient." "Oh," his eyes widened, aimed at Otto. "Is that a camera?" Otto had forgotten about the camera dangling from his neck, had grown comfortable with the weight of the device that had messed up the town. That bothered him, but not as much as these quirky strangers noticing it. He took a step back. A.M. stepped closer. "Let's take some pictures. We can make you look amazing." "No," She'd said, using his angry outdoor voice. "We're not taking pictures. Tell us why you're not frozen like everyone else in town." Frozen Mrs. Needraw said, "That's a very good question. AM and PM huffed as if the question were silly. AM said, "Weren't we clear? We are clock watchers." "Agents of time," said PM. "And as of some point today, something put us out of a job." Embarrassed heat prickled Otto's cheeks and forehead. She'd stare down at the camera. "Something? More like someone."